I know you dreamed of this moment. 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 I know you dreamed of this moment where your favorite YouTuber would come back to YouTube. I know. I know you're subscribed. I know you have the notification bell on. I know you saw the notification and you clicked on this video immediately because you knew your favorite YouTuber just posted. Right? Right? Hello everyone and welcome back to STEM with Ari. And today we're going to be getting into a question that a lot of people have asked me. And this has been an especially common question post-pandemic. It's how can I be more productive? Right? Well, we have so many different things to do in our lives. We have so much work. We have all of these different priorities we need to balance. And a lot of us, we're taking classes. We have extracurriculars. We have our own hobbies. We have the day-to-day tasks that we have to do. We want to meet up with people. We want to have fun. And we also want to do work. And we want to do work as productively as possible. How can we be more productive? So that's what we're going to be getting into in this video. And I'm going to be giving you 5 tips to becoming instantly more productive. So the first tip that I have for you is to stop taking notes. That's right, stop taking notes and start asking questions. So what do I mean stop taking notes? How can I stop taking notes, you ask? Like, all of the schoolwork that I've ever done and all the things that I've ever done, like if I've ever went to after school classes or if I've done classes in school, then everyone's been asking me to take notes. All of my classes demand me to take notes. They're like, this is how you're going to learn the information. You're going to take a bunch of notes and that's how it's going to be. You're going to review your notes. You're going to condense the content. You're going to review the content, etc., right? So what do you mean stop taking notes? Well, taking notes is actually a form of passive engagement. That means that when you take notes, all you're focusing on is condensing the information. You're reading the information, right? And your brain is like, okay, well, how do I make this shorter and how do I put these into notes? So bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3, and so on, right? But you aren't thinking at all. You aren't thinking of what you're putting down on the page. You're just thinking, how can I take these notes? You aren't thinking, what does this information actually mean? And do I actually understand this information? And the worst thing is, when people take notes, after they finish taking those notes, they automatically think that, oh, I think I learned something, right? I just made a bunch of notes and it makes sense to me. I can read these notes and like it makes perfect sense to me. So of course I understand what I wrote down. That's not how it works at all. I'm going to claim that all the notes that you take, all you're really doing is summarizing and condensing the information. You aren't actually learning anything. You aren't actually learning and understanding the concepts that you're writing down. In order to actually learn and understand concepts, you know what you have to do? You have to practice application. And how do you apply? How do you apply all of these crazy concepts without taking notes? Like how can I read something and then immediately apply it? What can I do? What's the bridge between seeing something for the first time and being able to apply it? What is it? Let's think. Well, that's asking questions. We have to ask questions. In order to learn, we have to ask questions. When we see a new piece of information, or when we learn a new piece of information, if all we do is write it down and we don't ask any questions and we don't try to apply the information, then all we're going to do is we're going to maybe memorize that piece of information that we learned, but we're never going to learn how to apply it. So we have to ask questions. Every time you learn a new concept, every time you encounter a new piece of information, you have to ask questions. You have to ask, how am I going to take this and how am I going to use it? You have to try doing some examples. You have to try all of the examples, okay? You have to try all of the problems that use these concepts. You'll see in any textbook really, whenever they have like a long section of reading, at the very end they'll have some questions that you can do, and those questions will mostly be focusing on the main ideas. So after you read, or even before you read, you can preview those questions and then you can go back to them and start answering them after you've read the content. And this is going to help you actually understand the content instead of taking notes and then just memorizing them and then forgetting them eventually. So if you actually want to learn, you have to stop taking notes and start asking questions. The second tip that I'm going to give you is stop looking for the best way to work, right? Well, everyone seems pathologically obsessed with the best way to work. Everyone's looking for, what are the best apps that I can download for note taking, which we already discussed. Don't take that many notes. You don't need to take that many notes at all. What are the best apps that I can use for note taking? And then people think like, okay, well, if I'm programming, what's the best text editor or IDE that I can use in order to program better? And then people ask, what's the best programming language that I can use? And then people ask all these other thousands and thousands of questions, right? And people ask all of these questions and they look for answers to them. And when they're doing this entire thing of looking for answers to these questions, for what's the best way to work, they're convinced that they're doing work. They're convinced that they're practicing, but that's not true at all. That's not true at all. In order to practice, you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions and you have to answer questions. Stop looking for the best way to work and start focusing on the actual work. Start actually asking those questions and you will go so much further. Because when you look for the best way to work, sure, you'll download new note-taking apps, you'll take more notes, and sure, you'll find like the best text editor, and you'll start like spending hours and hours of your time setting up the text editor, making it look good, making your notes look good, and all of this time you're going to be thinking, oh, I'm learning so much information, I'm spending so much time actually learning, right? But that's not happening. In order to learn, you have to ask questions instead, period. The third tip that I'm going to give you is drink water and eat food. There's so many times when people just stay in the room all day long and all they do is they just focus on their work, right? They don't drink water, they don't eat food. So you have to drink water and you have to eat food. In order to actually have the energy and the brain power to do the work, in order to devote actual deep focus into your work and actually understand what you're doing, you have to drink water and you have to eat food. And a lot of people, they stay dehydrated and they don't eat that much food, so they feel less energetic, they don't feel as focused, and it's really just a recipe for disaster. You'll feel so much better in not only your work, but all your aspects of life in general if you start drinking water and eating food. And along with that, if you can eat a balanced diet, that's even better. You're going to have even more energy and you're going to feel even more productive in general. And that brings me to my fourth point as well, which is to go outside and to start talking to more people. This is kind of counterintuitive, right? Like, you think, well, if I'm trying to do work, maybe I should just stay inside all day and I should just stare at my computer screen, or I should stare at my, like iPad, or if I'm doing physical work, my worksheets, right? And I should just start reading them and start doing all this work and just stay in my room all day long and just keep working, right? Keep working. But actually, you have to go outside and you have to start talking to people. Why do you have to go outside? Well, when you go outside, that's one way that you can give your brain a genuine break. If you go outside and you give your brain a break, you'll feel so much happier. You'll get all this nice oxygen, you'll get this fresh air, you'll be able to look around, and you'll realize how nice and how whole this world is. You'll actually be able to enjoy the happiness in the smallest moments of life. Instead of staying inside and just like focusing on your work, if you go outside, you can let your thoughts linger. You can let your brain do whatever it wants to do. And you don't need to go outside all the time, but I'm just saying, take small breaks. And that also brings me to talking to more people, right? If you talk to more people, instead of just staying inside and doing your work all day, if you talk to more people, there's a chance that you'll meet some very interesting people, right? You'll make some friends and you'll basically feel much happier in your life in general. And talking to people, it doesn't always have to be meeting new people. It can also be going back to your old friends and hanging out with them more, or reconnecting with them more. When you talk to more people, you'll just feel happier in general. You'll feel like you aren't alone, and you'll feel like your mental health is much, much better. And potentially, if those people have the same goals as you, or you're in the same classes, then you can even study together, right? For example, if you're preparing for a class, like a test, or you're preparing for even more specifically like a math competition, right? And both of you have those same struggles, then you can share in the practice, you can share in working together, and that can also hold you accountable to your work. And that brings me to my fifth point, which is practicing at the right level. A lot of people, they'll think that they're doing work, they'll think that they're doing excellent work, they'll maybe even be following some of these tips, and they'll be like, wow, I'm being so productive, I'm doing all this practice, I'm asking all of these questions, but really, they aren't doing enough. Why? Because, for example, they might be practicing problems or concepts that are way too hard or way too easy for them. If they practice concepts that are way too easy for them, then they become overconfident with their own abilities, and they don't learn the actual harder material that they might have to know for the tests or for their work in general, right? Or conversely, if they practice only the hard concepts and that's all they do, then they'll feel very underconfident, and potentially they'll be missing out on some of the easier concepts that they need to know. So really, if you practice at the right level, then what that means is always practice right above your comfort zone. That means that if your comfort zone is here, then you need to be practicing right above it, right here. That means that every time you do new problems, you'll be stretching your comfort zone just a little bit, just enough so that it will stretch and you'll extend it, basically. You'll do those new problems, you'll cement those new concepts, or you'll do that new work, and you'll basically be able to accomplish those new tasks that were slightly harder than the tasks that you did earlier, and you'll be able to pull your comfort zone in and extend it, basically. And then next time you can go even further and even further and even further. And gradually, you're going to be developing your skill set, you're going to be developing your productivity. So that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure once again to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell down below to stay updated for the latest videos. And also, there are a lot more videos coming up really soon. I'm back.